Major General Kenyon Bell, joined by Representative Blake Moore, U.S. Representative for Utah's 1st Congressional District.
Hello, everyone. They asked us whether we wanted a handheld or a hand-free mic. We went with the boy band option. But we are at the depot, so I used to work right nearby here, and actually this is the rowdiest crowd that I've ever seen lining up here. It's a real honor for me to be able to pepper General Bell with some questions. And we've got a few things that we've identified to highlight and hopefully are beneficial to you all. But this is one of the neat things I get to do. I don't have to give my political spiel. I don't have to give the committee update that I'm working on. I just get to facilitate a conversation to hear what's really going on the ground within the active duty space, within what is overlooked as some of the most important work we do in the Department of Defense, and that's the depot work. When I got into Congress and I met with the current chairman of the Armed Services Committee, Mike Rogers, he asked me, would you, knowing the importance of Ogden Air Logistics and, down here where I am in Alabama, depot work gets overlooked so much. It's not the flashiest of all of the military apparatus, and it is significantly important. The work that we do within the Department of Defense for our national security is more and more becoming about logistics, equipment, and making sure that we have the proper sustainment of our equipment, and that's why I've been so impressed with General Bell and the several times that I've gotten a chance to meet him. And I just wanted to sort of open it up for you, though, to give a little bit more context, your background and what you do and what your role here is at Hill Air Force Base. I think the most important thing to know about him is, though, he was in his time, in his day, the second best basketball player for the Air Force Falcons, second only to Brandon Parker from Ogden High School Tigers, who was, a legend here. So he's a hometown legend, of course, as an Ogden boy.
Right,
so please tell the group, and then hopefully that's the last that they're going to hear of me today.
Well, Congressman Moore, thank you very much. This is a fabulous opportunity. I have to tell you, though, as I start this morning, getting ready, and I'm father of 3. My wife and I have 3 children. One is in high school, and our daughter, who's the high schooler, was on her way down to Salt Lake City as well. She's not going to be in school today. She's doing something here in the area and being interviewed. So we found ourselves at about 6:30 this morning comparing what type of interview and who is being interviewed by the highest authority.
She probably wins.
She might have won. I'm not sure. But I'm a native of South Carolina, and have had the privilege of wearing this uniform now for 29 years as active duty. My wife and I started off in service together, and so now we have 3 children. And we arrived here in Utah about a year ago. One of the best welcomes that we have had through 14 or 15 different moves, and so this has been fantastic. The role that I have is the commander of the Ogden Air Logistics Complex. A lot of words, frequently called the depot, not to be confused with the depot that we're in today. And 2 of my teammates are here. I believe I did see them before the lights blinded me. We are a heavy civilian organization. If I could ask Ms. Michelle Hathaway, our executive director, and Colonel Mickey Artola Chipe, if y'all could please stand for just a moment in the back there. Yes. So our depot has about just shy of 7,000 personnel, and the majority of our personnel are civilians. That's the way that our depots, and there are 3 of them across the United States, the continental United States, are set up. Hill Air Force Base, I should say, though, is a large organization just 30 minutes north of here. And our organization, the base itself, has lots of different military organizations on the base, crossing multiple major commands. There's a fighter wing, there's a reserve fighter wing, there's the air base wing host that I always like to give a shout out, Colonel Dan Cornelius, because he is the host and the installation commander, and he has lots of mouths to feed and lots of demanding partners, and we are his biggest mission partner with 7,000 folks doing the mission of taking care of the fighter aircraft across our United States Air Force, as well as we have a nuclear mission with the Minuteman III and the intercontinental ballistic missiles. So fighter and nuclear depot is the kind of the tagline that we have, and we do it with amazing people. Hopefully we'll have a chance to talk more about the people, but think F-22s, F-35, we have some geographically separated units across 6 different states, as well as an organization over in Okinawa, Japan, and our folks are patriots. You know, I've been wearing this uniform, as I mentioned, for quite some time, but our civilian members, they bleed red, white, and blue just like anyone who wears this uniform. And they are truly the key to our success, and happy to brag on them a little bit more later on.
It's one of the neatest things to be able to represent Hill Air Force Base and really see firsthand the diverse program set that we have there. Because, I mean, those are two of the, we ought to be incredibly proud. I remember I was in Israel a couple years ago, and one night we got buzzed by some F-35s. And it was that moment, I'm like, I'm halfway across the world, but that exists because of what we do at Hill Air Force Base. And that's the unique aspect that I get to represent. And so I love the fact, and Utah in general, they don't, this group definitely will, but Utah in general doesn't understand how diverse and how important that is to our entire national security apparatus. We are now at a point, and I think it's even more omnipresent for all of us, that there's a strategic shift going on, and there's a global conflict that exists basically in every continent at this point. Tell us a little bit about how the Air Force, your involvement, we're trying to re-optimize to be able to face this strategic shift in all of the different threats that are going on across the world.
Yes, sir. Great points. You know, so we have to look back at our history. Our Air Force has taken different approaches throughout the course of our history as we have approached national security. During the Cold War, we set up bases overseas for large-scale exercises, and we moved out. We established different places that we could operate from. And then when we had a unipolar moment, the Berlin Wall comes down, and then now we move into a different environment. And our core functions, our 5 core functions have not changed. But then 9/11 happens, and then now we find ourselves in a situation where we are now prioritizing close air support, strategic and very, very specific in precision bombing. And then now as we move forward, and as you mentioned, we've got multiple conflicts that are going on now, the war in Ukraine, and then we have near-peer adversaries, if you want to call it that, who are taking our weapons, taking our information, our intelligence, and they're trying to do things in a manner in which challenges the way that we do business. So we are in an era that we have, within the Air Force at least, we talk about it in an era of great power competition. And we have to make sure that we are optimized in order to meet those challenges. So our core competencies of air superiority, global strike, ISR, intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance, global mobility, and then, those are still our core competencies. How we go about engaging those is what's changing. Because those threats are one reason why we're changing, but the pace of technology and the advancements of technology are the other reason. So we are re-optimizing along 4 different lines. We're developing our people. We still want to make sure that we generate readiness. We want to project power. And then the 4th, and probably most critical for this crowd, is developing integrated capabilities. So last night, some of you may have heard one of the gentlemen on stage mentioned about Bill Knutson and his important work that he did in preparation for World War II. And one of the things that, as I did that research, that was really key is that he was challenged as he tried to galvanize the industrial base was, what does DoD have as a requirement? And so what we are doing now with developing integrated capabilities is trying to develop specifically what our requirements are. So they're not just spread across multiple major commands, but the mantra now is one Air Force. And so while we have multiple demands, we're going to integrate those capabilities across the board, and that is what the re-optimization is really all about.
So conceptually, it's always tough for me to identify. I mean, as part of the Depot Caucus, like the whole re-optimization plan of the industrial base is a key aspect. It's such a behemoth. It's hard for me to sort of grasp like, okay, so what are we actually doing and how can we tackle this? That came to life for me last time I was on base, and I had a meeting with you and your other executive team and some of the others from the commander wings. I used to work a block and a half from here at a consulting firm called Cicero. And I remember going through the training of Lean, Six Sigma, Lean, all that stuff. I was always I thought corporate buzzwords when I learned about it. Then I actually learned about it and I saw some use cases. I was like, okay, there's actually some substance here. And I think one of the most impressive pieces of it, of seeing, doing the work more efficiently was the last time I was on Hill Air Force Base. And I'm going to highlight this because General Bell won't brag about himself, his leadership, and his team. He'll brag about his people, but not so much the stuff that he's led. There was a significant backlog in our F-16 sustainment, and one of the big problems is hangar space. We're always working on that in our office to be able to help Hill Air Force Base get. We have aging infrastructure. We got buildings that existed from World War II. And trying to get the environment for the people to be able to do their job. There was a significant backlog of F-16s. And by making a few changes and approaching things with fresh eyes, they came in and basically eliminated, within a very short time frame, the F-16 backlog in the sustainment that's going, getting those planes back out and ready for the field.
Right.
There's a backlog, as any new program will do with looking at the F-35, and now they're going to be able to take what they learned on doing it with the F-16 and move it to the F-35. That was like just a significant example of real improvement, and it was just fascinating to watch. It's now an anecdote that I go and share as much as possible, that even though the federal government and the DoD are huge organizations, with the help of private industry, with the help of all of the people in this room, and the dedicated workforce that you have, you made some significant improvements. Any other context to add to that about how you're just trying to do things more efficiently that you see, and what does the future hold for the next few years?
Absolutely. First, I probably need to put a little pin in my chest because I'm just bowing up with pride as the Congressman is detailing that story. We try to tell our message as far and broadly as we can because it makes a difference. If you come on Hill Air Force Base, you'll see several signs across the base that says, we do our wartime mission every single day. And we are proud of what we do. There's the quote that talks about, some people talk about operations, but professionals talk logistics. And the way that we go about doing our business is with a mission culture called Art of the Possible. And it is based in a theory of constraints-based management system, but that approach is significant for us. It's not just buzzwords. And from a re-optimization standpoint, where it gets down to the depot is we're re-optimizing because we need to upgrade our facilities and upgrade our equipment. And that is necessary. The Congressman spoke about the old facilities that we have. So these facilities were built, and the depot, all three of them actually, were birthed in the 1940s. So many of our facilities are still 1940s facilities. I mean, think about our 5th-gen aircraft, F-35. And now you're still coming into those same facilities that were here back in the day, if you will. And so we need to upgrade our facilities. We need to think about the types of equipment that we're utilizing. We have something called the Eisenhower, because it's been around since Eisenhower, working on equipment to keep multiple weapon systems viable and to produce readiness. Across our depot, while I mentioned that we're the fighter and nuclear depot, portions of our groups do work on just about every single weapon system across our Air Force when we think about component repair, electronics repair, and so forth. And so what we're doing is we are taking considerable amount of time to do things like focus in on the industrial Internet of Things, Industry 4.0, digitizing the depot. So these are ways that we are going to make sure that we can capitalize on knowing what our capacity is within the depot, matching that up with the capabilities that we have so we can give the warfighter exactly what they need. It is a concerted effort. It's big business. If I were to say $11 billion to anyone, I think that would catch everyone's attention. That is not budget dust. we're investing $11 billion in our infrastructure over the course of the next 20 years or so. And because we anticipate that we're going to have a 30% increase in our workload. The F-35 is here. We're working on the F-35. The F-16 is going to remain a very viable weapon system going forward. The T-38, which is one of our trainers, it's done at one of our geographically separated units, not here in Utah. But when that platform retires, the T-7 is going to be the new platform, and that will be maintained here in Utah at the Ogden Depot here proper. So when we think about those types of weapon systems and what we're doing right now and how we're doing it right now, how much better and more efficient can we be if we modernize and get ready to be able to support great power competition? So those are some of the things that we're doing from a modernization standpoint.
And from my perspective, there is a very sincere effort, and when I say sincere and Congress in the same sentence, I know everybody will laugh, but there is a very sincere effort to embrace what I'm seeing from this conference. The Unit X, the book that everybody was given, the author of that is a longtime friend of mine. I didn't even make the connection that was going to be provided here. He gave me one of those books about several months ago. Don't tell him I haven't read it yet. I'm going to get to it. But I started having meetings in my national security defense role within my committee work in Congress, specifically with these Silicon Valley type groups. I just spent another week back there. These are folks that are like, hey, we've had big success. We want to make sure our country, and it comes from a true sense of patriotism. We want to make sure our country, has the ability to access this technology. Back in the day, as we say, the military contracts would go, you would set it out there, and eventually it would become commercial use. Well, that got flipped on its head a little bit, right. And there's organizations that are trying to make this move as quickly as possible. We, however, get stuck in the old antiquated system, the old logistics acquisition process, and I know that it's frustrating for many folks in industry to look at the DoD and say we could do this so much better, right? And just know that there is a sincere effort within my colleagues, within the Armed Services Committee, Defense Approps, that they want to embrace this more. And I just keep pushing on us and keep showing us a better way to do some of these things. Excuse me. Let's touch on workforce quickly.
Sure.
It's a tough one to crack.
It is. Our workforce, they are the key enabler, the force multiplier for us. Kind of touched on it a little bit earlier, but the talent pool that we have very talented people. And I want to demystify something as well. A lot of times people think, hey, if I want to work at the depot, I must be a rocket scientist, literally, or I must have some significant mechanical capabilities. There's a wonderful story. I highlighted Ms. Hathaway and Colonel Tolochipe in the back. When I first got here almost a year ago, we were making our rounds and kind of talking to different people. And as we were talking with one group, there were some relatively new employees. One that is the apprentice. In active duty parlance, that would be a 3 level, in the 3, 5, 7 level kind of thought process. And so this apprentice she was very excited about what she was doing, so just engaged her a little bit and said, well, how long have you been out here? She said, I've been here for about 3 months. Well, what were you doing before you got here? She was a dog groomer in the local community. So dog groomer, all right. And now she is working the big C5 vertical hone, which develops and makes the landing gear for the C5. Making the landing gear for the C5. Now that was a year ago. Just earlier this week, well, actually it was last week, was talking with some of her leadership. She has now progressed. And now she is running the swing shift, the off-shift operation, and is the certifying official on this piece of equipment, this antiquated piece of equipment. So we take people from the community with some skill level or no skill level. We put them through a training regime, and then we spit them out on the other end, and now they are the technicians that we need and need to lead us into this new era. We need those technicians. It is, in many cases, family business. We have mothers and sons, grandparents who are working out at the depot, generations of people. It is a great place to work. You can look at our pay scale and you can realize that nobody is working at the depot trying to get rich. It is out in the public, but because of that, that is the one area that we are looking for considerable help. And Congressman, you and others have helped us out quite a bit in championing, trying to close that gap of disparity when it comes to locality pay, and we certainly appreciate that. The cost of living out in this area is tremendous, and us trying to attract talent, continue to attract talent, is challenged by that opportunity. So we need technicians, we need machinists, we need fabricators, and et cetera, but we also need engineers. I think Mr. Jeff Wandry, who is my lead technical engineer, at least for another month or so before he retires yet a second time from government service, is here. Our engineers from a mechanical standpoint to software engineers and et cetera, we really need all of those talents. And before I get the hook to get off stage, I just want to make mention the local community legislation and et cetera have been significantly helpful across a lot of different areas. As you know, we built a 15,000 square foot building for the software directorate, and I think they just called out Mr. Enos Cummings. $21 million was what the state legislature put forward for that in order to bring that on. That is like unheard of. And the support that is given, not just verbally, but in a tangible manner. So it makes a difference across the board. And of course, we've got great partnerships with Davis Technical College. I believe President Brush is here, Ogden Weber Technical College, in order to help grow that wonderful workforce that you asked me about.
And it goes beyond that too. Not just the technical side and the money and the support, because it's unprecedented what the Utah Defense Alliance, MIDA, all those groups will be willing to do. But also, if you look Saturday night, there's another fundraiser where we take families before their deployment, take them up to the Wasatch Back, to Eden. Owners of condos up there let these military service members go stay there for a long weekend. And there's so many, it's called the Wolf Creek Foundation. There's so many aspects that make Hill Air Force Base and this whole entire community what they are. But I'll just get to be the one that ends this and say, like, there's real results coming out of General Bell's leadership and what he's been able to do with his team. And that just, it reinvigorates me in my role to make sure they have whatever it is that I can provide them. And knowing that you all are out there supporting it makes it even more worthwhile. So sincere thank you and appreciate your service.
Thank you very much, and thanks for your support.